Hey, I'm Miss Williams. I am the English Master Teacher at Woodlawn Leadership Academy. I am creating this video for parents and students so you guys can work together to get the performance task done for Unit 1. I am going to first get you into Google Classroom so you can see exactly what your child sees, and that way all of us are on the same page. Okay, first, once your baby logs into Google Classroom, he or she can access Google Classroom through ClassLink. And to reiterate, the directions for students obtaining their username or obtaining access to ClassLink is right here in this blue ribbon. Just need to read this and follow these directions explicitly, and it'll tell you exactly how to type in the username and password. So once students are logged in, they can access Google Classroom from this point. So let me go to my classroom. So if you take a look, your child is in this class, Williams Knights B. The teacher of record is Miss Janita Williams, and the students are in my classroom that was created for my assisting those students. So we're going to click right here on the performance task. Now, here where it says read the instructions or read the presentation instructions first, please use the exemplar, my example, to guide you. Also be aware of the rubric. Your grade is in your hands. So I'm going to start with the presentation instructions, which are right here. Students can simply click on it and the instructions come up. These are the same instructions in the My HRW textbook that students have access to through their ClassLink as well. So the collection explores the significance of our relationships with others as individuals and in groups. Look back at the text you've read, including the anchor text, what of this goldfish would you wish? And make a generalization about how our relationships define who we are. Share your ideas in a speech that incorporates media elements. Now, we are not doing a speech. They are creating a PowerPoint presentation in Google Slides. And if time permits, we'll do some small group speeches, but I do not want to waste class time on speeches because we do need to move into our second collection. So if you look here, the information above can be found on page 41 of the textbook. Again, students have access to the textbook online. They're to go to Google Drive, open slides, and begin a new presentation. So I'm going to go back to Google Classroom. So now that we've looked at the instructions, this is the rubric for the assignment. This is how students will be graded. Now, they're graded in 4 areas: content, which is ideas and evidence; organization; language; and errors. Now, the student can pretty much determine the type of grade he or she wants to have just by looking at the bullets or the descriptors in each category. The highest a student can score on the rubric is a 16, which will be converted in percentage points. So the 16 out of 16 will be a 100%. Now, it's very important that students look at these details. So many students have lost points on the assignment because they've not taken a look at the details. So let's go back. And here is the example that I provided for students. Now, once this loads, I'm going to open it in a large view and walk through it. Okay, if you take a look at the yellow arrows, I am telling students what to do slide by slide. If you notice, for day 1, we're going to work on this tomorrow in class. Okay, so the collection itself is entitled Ourselves and Others, and they have to use this heading for the opening slide. Now, these questions do need to be answered, and they can bullet the points. In this collection, we learned it should start like that, and students should simply answer these questions. What did we learn about interacting with people who are different from us? What did we learn about disagreeing with others and having to live with people who don't think like us? And why is tolerance important? Students must answer these questions. Next, Give the slide a heading. Now, I gave mine the title Relationships. Yours doesn't have to be relationships, but it definitely needs to make sense for the collection. So on the next 2 slides, tell about relationships in general and how people benefit from relationships. Here, you should not talk about yourself. This is in third person. Add a strong quote from 5 Benefits of Healthy Relationships. Students should have this passage. If your child is keeping an organized binder, this should be inside of his or her binder. Next, this is the second slide where it says continue from the previous slide and add the thesis at the end of this slide. Now, I do want to show you exactly what students have, where the thesis is written, so we're all clear. Okay, your child has this salmon color handout, this salmon color graphic organizer. Now, this was given to them weeks ago. So here is where the performance task is written. We put the performance task in our own words. Then we wrote the thesis statement for the performance task. Now, for the stories that we've read in class, I started collecting evidence for students as my model. And in the second story we read about the goldfish, I started this, left some blanks to make sure students knew how to go in and find the evidence, and we even came up with a concluding idea at the end. Now, students also read a text entitled The Wife Story. So he or she should have evidence pulled from that story on this graphic organizer. And it goes on to the back side as well. So the thesis statement comes from this sheet. Your child should not say, I don't know what she's talking about. Yes, he or she does, because we've already done this and we've worked on it for several days in class. All right, so on the next 3 slides, explain 2 to 3 ways in which a personal relationship shapes you. See my example. I won't read this to you, but this is about my children. I also included graphics to make sense of what I'm saying right here. Include a because, but, or so sentence in your explanation. Underline it. If you notice, that's on the previous slide as well. I've underlined the sentence. First, it makes me a better person because I want to be a good example for them. And over here, all of my students are on different levels, so I differentiate passages and assignments when appropriate. I have thoroughly taught because, but, and so sentences, so students should definitely be able to incorporate those sentences in their explanation. Again, a graphic that's appropriate for the content. Now, from the selection, what of this goldfish would you wish? I showed you guys that from the graphic organizer. In complete sentences, describe the relationship between Sergey and the fish. Explain how the relationship motivates him to act a certain way. We're talking about Sergey. Cite relevant textual evidence. Students can find the evidence on that salmon color sheet. Explain how the evidence prove your point and add a graphic or picture. In this case, I just added this one goldfish here, and in this yellow arrow, this slide is not optional. Students must answer it or answer the questions, must include this information in their presentation. Now, another, from the wife story or any text we read, students can choose any text from that salmon color sheet in order to answer these questions. Explain how a relationship in the selection affects the main character. Explain how the relationship motivates him or her to act a certain way. Cite relevant textual evidence. Explain how the evidence proves your point, and add a graphic. Again, the collection is about relationships and how we interact with one another. So students should be able to explain to me or show me that they understand how relationships impact us, as well as show impact in the selections. In conclusion, now at the end of the presentation on this slide, briefly summarize your ideas about how relationships, whether positive or negative, shape who we are. I believe this is the thesis statement that students wrote down in third period. If it isn't, again, they just need to get that thesis statement from that salmon color sheet. They are to reiterate the thesis here and then briefly summarize the ideas they have already presented in this presentation. Some students have asked me about working on their cellular device. I wouldn't advise it because you can't make the corrections or add whatever needs to be added in Google Slide from a cell phone. So use your time wisely. get to the library. If you're able to get to a library, if somebody can let you borrow a laptop, do whatever needs to be done to get the assignment done. If you have any questions, definitely contact me in Google Classroom. It'll come directly to my phone and I can be of assistance that way. I hope this helps. You guys have a great evening.